This is Gemara and Beitzah Daf Tesvav. All the learning for this month. The month of Tishrei has been generously sponsored. L'schus Refuah Shlema for Shlema Ben Yita. Mirz Hashem, you should have a tremendous Refuah Shlema. As today's Daf, the Daf of Erev Yom Kippur, should be a tremendous schus for his Refuah. Of course, all the Chelim Man Vevega Chaim Ben Sarah, Shlom Asib Ben Ezid, Zosar Bas Gnendel, Ita Basiyam Bas Chayesar, Shmuel Yosef Ben Heni Afrida, Yosef Yoel Ben Mindel, Ita Basiyam Bas Chayesar, Yelez Person Shalei, Shlom Bas Naomi, Shechan Shmuel Ben Tilim Chan Rezel, Melchai Bas Mina Dinaino Ben Shenim Mindas Vim Vegavor Nechel Asun Telu Rivka Bas Hashem tells even a cluster. Beitzah Shar Chali Israel as well as Choshech B'Zol Chayim and Devaira and Shira Miriam Abbas or Rezel Gittel. We're holding well into Tezvavim and Aleph. Yesterday we got all the way into this staff discussing why you're allowed to give Kalayim to a gift on Yontif or what usage could it have. How does it fit into the rule of only things that you get benefit from it in Yantif? And we concluded that it can't be Kalayim you wear, it can't be Kalayim that uses a blanket, it can't be even soft Kalayim that you sit upon, it can't even be Kalayim that you sit upon under something. Rather, it can't even be Kalayim as a curtain. It has to be Kalayim of a stiff hard material that does not provide you warmth. Says the Gemara about 8 lines to the top of Tezvavim and Aleph, Avaloi Sandala Mesumar, we said you're not allowed to send the Sandala Mesumar, the spike sandal, as a... You can't send the spike sandal as a gift on Yontif. Of course, this will bring us back to the Gemara and Shabbos days where we learned about the sandal on the summer. We learned there about carrying it on Shabbos, whether you're allowed to wear it in the street. Says the Gemara, sandal on the summer, my time aloi. What is the reason you're not allowed to send it as a gift? Misha Maisa Shahaya, because of the story that happened, the story that there was a terrible siege and they couldn't get out of the cave, and as they tried to get out, these spike sandals killed each other more than even the enemy. So they made a gzir that you're not allowed to wear these sandal. Summer, these spiked sandals. This was Gemara and Shabbos, Taf Samach Amar Aleph. Amar Abayi says, Abayi, sandal on summer, aslan aloi. You're not even allowed to wear it. But you're allowed to move it. It's not muksa. Also, like we just explained. Why are you allowed to move it? If you can't wear it, why are you allowed to move it? For the fact that you can't send it as a gift. If you weren't allowed to move it even. So it says Abayi, it must be, even though a unique case, even though you have an item that you're not allowed to wear, still says Abayi, you must not take on the status of muksa. For the fact that the Mishnah said you can't send it as a gift is clearly implying in Meduyak that yes, you are allowed to move it, that it is not muksa. Says the Gemara, continuing the different items in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to send a shoe which is not sewn. Pshita, says the Gemara, of course not, it has no usage. Even though it has a wooden peg to hold the shoe together, so at some level it has a usage, still you're not allowed to send it on Yantif. Rav Yehuda, and you're not even allowed to send a white shoe for the reason that we explained, that requires an uman to dye a black. Tanya learned in a Rav Yehuda allowed to send a black shoe of Iser beloved, not a white shoe. A Beitzah Hagir, because it requires this certain type of earth with the blacksmith, this blackening earth that only an Ummah knew how to do it. Rav Yasi Iser b'shachar, you're not even allowed to send the black shoe. Why? Because you need to shine it, smooth it out, which also requires an Ummah to do it. So says Rav Yasi, you can't even send that on Yantif. And it says the Gemara, in reality, Rav Yehuda and Rav Yasi are not really disagreeing. Marki Asrei, Basi Damar, Basra, but Bisra Letachas, Basi Damar, Bisra Le'el. There are two different ways they made the shoes. In the location of Rav Yehuda, the flesh of the hide was inside, and therefore they didn't actually, when the shoe was black, they didn't have to smooth it out because the outside was smooth. Whereas in the place of Rav Yossi, they put the leather the other way. They put the flesh side of the leather outside, and even on the black shoe, they had to smooth out the outside, and that's why Rav Yossi said, you cannot send that because it requires the Uman to smooth it out, which is not allowed to be done on Yontif. Says the Gemara, as the Mishnah concluded, that anything you get benefit on Yontif, you're allowed to send. Rav Sheshes allowed the Talmidei Chachamim to send tefillin to one another on Yontif. Amarle Abayi says only if you can get benefit, and we don't wear tefillin on Yantif. Answers the Gemara. Whatever gives you benefit during the week, you can send in Yantif. So tefillin gives you benefit during the week, you can send it on Yantif. Amar Abayi says Abayi, once we're discussing tefillin oil v'asli yadan. Once the topic of tefillin came to our hand, name of Milsa says Abayi, let me tell you something about tefillin. You're walking on the road and you have tefillin on your head. And it becomes shkia, which you're not allowed to wear tefillin at night. Put your hand in your tefillin. Excuse me. And it's talking about Shabbos. So what do? Cover up your tefillin, so people should not see that you are wearing them, and therefore bring it home. You're carrying, you're not allowed to carry. The answer is it's klach riyad, it's an abnormal way, and therefore we allow you to continue carrying it and not require you to leave your tefillin on the roadside, which would be a potential bizayin. Let's say you're sitting in shul, and you're sitting and learning an Erev Shabbos because of it becomes Shabbos. What do now? Put your hand on it until you get home. Again, you let it walk home with your tefillin. 1 second. You put your hand in it. Says the Beitzah. This Beitzah says you're allowed to walk until where? Not till your house. So you get to the closest house to get rid of the tefillin, not get rid of, to take them off because it's Shabbos. And similarly, the Beitzah says, so why did you just teach me that you're allowed to walk all the way home, Abaye? We see clearly in the Beitzah you're only allowed to walk to the closest place that you could put them down in a safe manner. Answers Rav Huna. Very simple. Whether it's protected or not. Abaye learned the closest house is not protected, so you can go home. Whereas Rav Huna, Brei Ravika learned that the closest house was protected, so you have to leave it there. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. If the closest place is not protected, why did you say that the case that you're wearing your tefillin, I feel machton baranami, even if you find tefillin on the floor, in an unprotected area on Shabbos? We know that halacha. We learned in a Mishnah, if you find tefillin lying in a bizayin on Shabbos, you let it put it on and carry it home. So why are you telling me that you're wearing the tefillin, the Beitzah, if the case is one in which there's no safe area to leave it? It should even be in a case where the tefillin are lying on the side of the road. Answers the Gemara, Loi kasha, ha demintra machas kanvi umachnas kalvi. One place, the Beitzah, which says that you have to put the tefillin in the closest house, is where the house is protected from both thieves, ganavim, and kalvi, and dogs. But in the other Beitzah, where Abaye said he could bring it home, demintra machas kalvi, it's watched from dogs, and therefore, theoretically, if the tefillin were on the floor, you would have to leave it there, because the dogs won't touch it. V'loi mintra machas ganavi, and you're not watched from ganavim, and therefore you can bring it home. I would think, so you would think that majority of the thieves, unfortunately, are Jews, and therefore they're not going to desecrate the tefillin, so just leave it in the closest place. And that is the chiddush of Abaye Kamash Malad, that even though you're not worried about dogs, it's safe from dogs, and all worried about is robbers, and maybe you should say all robbers are Jewish, so maybe at the first available moment you should take your tefillin off your head and leave it in that closest house. Says Abaye, no, you got to be careful. You have to go, and you're allowed to go, I should say, and carry the tefillin all the way back to your house in order to be safe, that the tefillin are in a safe area. Hajan aloch Beitzah. We should do a wonderful chazara of this first parak, of this wonderful Masechta that we just began so short ago, a mere 2 weeks ago, Masechta's Beitzah. A Masechta, as hopefully everyone's realizing, is such a beautiful preparation for all the Amim Tovim, all the different rules we learned in this parak, the rules of Teichin, the rules of Beirer, the rules of carrying, the rules of Muksa, all the different halachas pertaining to Yantif. We should Mir Tashem do a wonderful Chazara. And with that, we move into the second parak, the parak which is going to begin imminently discussing the halachas of Erev Tafshilin, the halachas of cooking and preparing from Yontif to Shabbos. When we have Yontif on a Friday going to Shabbos, or Yontif on a Thursday, Friday going to Shabbos, how are you going to have your fresh food on Shabbos, if not for the fact that you're going to cook it on Yontif? Says the Mishnah, Tezvav and Beis, Yontif shachal liyos be'erev Shabbos. Yontif is on Erev Shabbos, lo yavashal b'tchila miyontif l'Shabbos. You're not allowed to cook from Yontif l'Shabbos. Avol, mavashal Yontif. Cook for Yontif, v'imaiser oiser l'Shabbos. And if something is left over, you're allowed to use it for Shabbos. V'yisatashal me'erev Yontif. And now, says the Mishnah, but what should you do? You should create a dish in Erev Yontif called your Erev Tafshilin. And that is what you're going to rely upon for Shabbos, which will explain how this works. 2 dishes, one dish. And they both agree, if you have a fish with an egg on it, it's called 2 dishes. But now, a very important halacha. So that's the creation of Erev Tavshilin. We'll see in the Gemara. That's going to allow you to cook from Yontif to Shabbos. But what happened? Achlu Aishavad. The chal rolled the egg, the piece of fish, the matzah, got eaten or lost, and you're sitting on Yontif. Are you allowed to cook anymore? Lo Yevashel Avitzchili. You're not allowed to cook anymore. Memshir Mimena Kol. You have a little bit left over. Some of the Shabbos. You are allowed to rely upon it for Shabbos. We'll see more about this in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili. Where did this come from? This concept, the creation of an Erev Tavshilin that you start cooking before Yontif, and then it allows me to cook from Yontif to Shabbos. Amar Shmuel says, Amar Kras says the Torah Zachar es Yom HaShabbos Likad Shoi. Remember Shabbos to sanctify it. Zachreu me'achar Shabbat Ashkichoi. Sanctify it. Remember Shabbos, because people forget it. And therefore, whenever we have Yontif right for Shabbos, you know what we're concerned with? We're concerned with, on Yontif, you can eat all your food, and you're not going to leave anything left over for Shabbos. So you purposely make a dish, an Erev Yontif for Shabbos. As a reminder, you'll always have something for Shabbos, and then we're not afraid you're going to forget, and then you can go and cook from Yontif straight up to Shabbos. My Taima says, the Gemara, why do they tell you to create the Erev Tavshilin? So you set aside a nice portion for Shabbos, and a nice portion for Yontif. That's Rava. Rav Ashi Amer K'tei Sheyomer Ein Oifim Yontif L'Shabbos. So that people should know that if you're not allowed to bake from Yontif to Shabbos, so it's a reminder that without the Erev Tavshilin, unless you started cooking before Yontif, you're not allowed to cook from Yontif to Shabbos. So that one will be reminded that you're not allowed to cook from Yontif to a weekday. Two answers: the answer of Rava, in order to have something prepared from Yontif and Shabbos; the answer of Ashi, to remind you not to prepare from Yontif to Chol. Tanan asks the Gemara on the first opinion of Rava. Erev Yontif, you make a dish in Erev Yontif, v'saymech lav l'Shabbos, and you leave it for Shabbos. So b'yishlam l'Rav Ashi, the second answer, Damar K'tei Sheyomer Ein Yoifim Yontif l'Shabbos, so everyone should know you're not allowed to cook from Yontif to Shabbos. Hainu d'mei Erev Yontif in b'Yontif loy. So now I understand why the whole creation of Erev Tavshilin was before Yontif, because that's the only way that's going to be this reminder. El Rava, but according to Rava, Ma'ir Erev Yontif afilu b'Yontif nami. According to Rava, the whole point is to ensure that you have a nice dish for Yontif in Shabbos, so do that even on Yontif itself. Answers the Gemara for Rava in Achanami. In reality, Rava agrees you can make an Erev Tavshilin on Yontif itself. We're afraid you're going to be negligent to make the Erev as you're busy with the Yontif celebrations, and therefore they make you required to do it on Erev Yontif. Says the Gemara, so far, what have we had? We've had one source for Erev Tavshilin of Shmuel, Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kachai. And we had two reasons, Rava and Rav Ashi, as to why you create the Erev Tavshilin before Yontif. Says the Gemara, another source for the creation of Erev Tavshilin. A different source. That which you're going to bake, you bake. That which you're going to cook, you're going to cook. Mikan, from here, Amar. Rav Elazar, you know, if in Ella Afui, you're only allowed to bake if you have something baked. You're only allowed to cook if you have something that was cooked. This is the source for Erev Tavshilin min HaTorah, says Rav Elazar. So we have two sources, either Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kachai, or as Asher Afu Te'afu, as Asher Tevashelu Bashelu, that you have to prepare prior Erev Tavshilin, and then you could cook from Yontif to Shabbos. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara, a bit of a segue, a bit of a sidebar, going into the dinim of Kavod Yontif, the Yontif meals. Again, sitting here on Erev Yom Kippur, however, Paul, with Shabbos and Yom Sukkot up ahead, give us a bit of a chashivas, a bit of a chizik in the Kavod of Yontif. Rav Elazar was sitting and learning the entire day. He was giving shir on Yontif, Bilchos Yontif. Yotzakat Misha, in the middle of the shir, the first group gets up to leave. In the middle of the shir, Rav Elazar says, Halalu Bale Pitzin. These guys, they have big barrels. They're big belly taiva. They have to go eat their meal. Kachnia, middle of the drasha, middle of the shir, the second group gets up. Amar Rav Elazar, the little bali chavias. They have smaller barrels. Kachlish is the third one. Amar little bali kadim jogs by 3 v's. Amar little bali ginim, the smaller measurement. Kachamish is Amar halalu bali kais is just cups. So 5 different groups left in the middle of shir, and each one Rav Elazar derogatorily said, "Oh, they're only concerned with gashmis. Different levels of gashmis. They're leaving because they have a lot of food. They're leaving. They have less food. They're leaving because they have less food. Each one leaving during this year." His chiluk kachishas lot says the 6th group began to get up during this year and leave. Amar said Rav Elazar, halalu bali ma'ara. These are desolate people. These guys, they have nothing. He put his eyes on the remaining few Talmidim that were there listening to the shiur. His chilup their faces started turning colors. They were all nervous. Amr Lehem, Rav Elazar says, B'ni, my children, don't get nervous. I'm not screaming at you guys. I'm screaming at the guys that left. They leave eternity. They go eat their suda. And finally, when the shiur ended and everyone was leaving, what did Rav Elazar tell them? Amr Lehem, go eat from that which you have prepared, the rich foods, and drink the sweet drinks, and give manais, give food to those who don't have that which prepared. Because today is sanctified to our master about the atzvu. And don't be sad, because the joy of Hashem is your security. So we have a fascinating story. Each group was leaving in the middle of the drasha. Rav Elazar derogatorily tells them, what are you going to eat? What are you going to eat? Finally, he finishes, he tells them all, you guys are the best. They're leaving Chai Olam and going to eat. You're the great. And then when he leaves, he tells them all, okay, now go eat, now go drink, and give food to everyone else. Says the Gemara, Amar Mar, let's dissect this story. Rav Elazar said, they're leaving Chai Olam Torah and they're going just to eat and drink. What about the fact they're going to do a mitzvah? They're going to eat Simchas Yontiv. How did Rav Elazar chastise them? They're going to do a mitzvah. Rav Elazar Simchas Yontiv Rishos. Face a famous machlokes. Rav Elazar holds Simchas Yontiv is not a mitzvah. Simchas Yontiv is optional. The Tanya, as we learned in a Beitzah that I believe we've had in a Gemara in Pesachim, says the Gemara, Rav Elazar Aimer ein loy adam b'yantav ella, a person in yantav has a choice. Eichel v'shaisa, eat and drink, ayosha v'shayna, sit and learn. Rav Elazar says each is equal. It's optional to eat, or you can sit and learn all day. Rav Yeshua Aimer, which we know is the halach l'maisa, chelkeu, split it up, chetz l'Hashem and chetz l'chem, half for God and half for yourself. Yantav, there's a mitzvah to eat and rejoice as well. Says Rav Yochanan, both Rav Elazar and Rav Yeshua, whether it's optional or obligatory to eat and drink and festive on Yantiv, learn up one pasuk. Kasav Echad Aimer, it says, Teres Lashem Elokecha, that it should be a Yantiv to Hashem. Because Echad Aimer, different pasuk says, Teres Yelachem, it should be a Yantiv for you. Hakita, is it God or yours? What is it? So says Rav Elazar, a simple answer. Savar Kula Hashem Kulachem, you have an option, either all God or all you. Take your choice. Rav Yeshua Savar Chelkei, you split it up, Chetz L'Hashem, Chetz L'Chem, half for Hashem, half for you. And that is the famous machlokes, whether you have to eat on Yantiv, which of course we pass like Rav Yeshua, that there's always an element of Chetz L'Chem, which famously the Rambam says, okay, so split up your day, equally eating and drinking and learning, okay, but we have to always remember, both of them are equally chashiv, or both of them are chashiv, I should say. Now, just to conclude, Mailei Nachan Lai, Rav Elazar told his Talmidim as they were leaving, send gifts to those who don't have food prepared. Amar Rav Chisda, you know what he was telling them? Mishlei Nich Erev Tavshilin, to the one that did not have an Erev Tavshilin, the one that did not cook from Yom to the Shabbos, send them food. Iged Yamri, another Pshat says, the Gemara, Mishlei Nich Erev Tavshilin, the one, Misha Haya Loy Leniach Erev Tavshilin, the one that should have created an Erev Tavshilin, but they didn't, then, Misha Haya Leniach Erev Tavshilin, V'lo Hiniach. What's going on over here? That's the one you could send to. Again, so the second answer is, Rav Elazar is saying, the person who wasn't negligent, then you should send food. But if someone was negligent and forgot to create Erev Tavshilin, no need to help him out. He messed up, don't give him food. And we conclude with Mikey Chavez Hashem Yimu Aschem. What did Rav Elazar mean when he said, for the joy of Hashem is your security? Amar Rav Yechon, Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon. Amar Lam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael B'ni, my children, love alive. V'kitchu Kedush L'Yayim. Borrow on my account, says God, and sanctify the day. V'aminu bi, and have faith in me, says Hashem. V'ani perei, and I'm going to pay back for you. Make sure you always have Simchas Yantiv. Amar Rav Yechon, Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon. We'll conclude with this. Someone who wants to make sure his properties prosper. This reason we bring this down, of course, because Rav Yechon, Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon, Yitveh Madar, he should plant an adir tree, eder tree. Shneimar eder b'maram Hashem. Inami adra kishmeit kedamri inchi, as people say, my edra dekaim l'dari dari, that the edra is going to be around for many generations. That's a way to have financial security. Tanami hachi, we have a Beitzah that says, sada sheish be'eder. If a field has this eder tree, it's not going to be stolen, it's not going to be taken away with force, and the fruits are guarded, and that